Today's August 21st, 2024. We're at the Brownsville PUB Annex Building. This is a audit committee meeting. We do have a quorum. We have Mr. Naja's here, Mr. Variad. So we'll start off with public comments. Do we have any public comments?
No public comments.
Okay. The next items for presentation and discussion. Item number 1, presentation, discussion, and possible recommendation to review and update the audit committee charter. Ms. Binales.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Melida Pinales, Director of Internal Audit, and I'd like to present my team. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay, so on agenda item number 1, this is the audit committee charter that is being presented to the committee for minor updates. This has been reviewed by Mr. Gonzalez, and there are very minor changes. The main changes have to do with the reporting structure. I no longer report to the general manager and CEO. I now report to Mr. Gonzalez. So those are just the minor updates mainly. I don't know if you have any questions or any recommendations.
No, I think I've reviewed them, and I'm sure the committee members have reviewed. Mr. Naja, do you have anything?
I guess one of the recommendations there is to generalize the department to make sure that we're, that at some point, if you need to, we need to reach out, it can be generalized, and we can reach out to somebody if it's a vacation or something. You know what I mean? Did I make myself clear on that?
So on under the, like the audit committee itself, or?
No, the actual responsible person for the committee, for
The Director of Internal Auditing?
Internal Auditing.
Okay, so that it's more on the internal audit charter. This charter is for this committee.
Okay.
And then to address your question, that would fall under the internal audit charter, which is more specific to myself and the department.
Okay, let's make a note of that, please.
Yes, sir, we will.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's go on to number 2, Ms. Binales.
Yes, sir. So on agenda item number 2, this is presentation, discussion, and possible recommendation to review and update the internal audit charter. So you have the document also. There's also been some housekeeping. It also has been reviewed by legal counsel. So is there any questions that I can address or from legal? But it's also just some maintenance of the document itself.
I think, Mr. Naja, perhaps you were referring to the first paragraph in general refers to the Director of Internal Auditing. The DIA is the Director of Internal Audit throughout the document. In the absence of the DIA, is there a order of, and your staff, is there
Yes, sir.
a second in command?
Yes, sir. Both of my auditors are capable in taking over. Whenever I'm out, they're left in charge, either or.
And that is correct. Mr. Fernandez.
Okay, anything else on this item that any of the committee members have any questions on? Paul, you've already worked with them on these, on this draft?
Yes, and just one point of clarification may be helpful. The reporting that is done by internal auditing to me is administrative in nature. It's not a functional, she's the auditor and does that reporting to the board primarily through the audit committee itself. And the relationship as it's described in these 2 charters is fairly high level. It leaves all of the authority with the board, and whatever this committee may need to or wish to revise or refine, that's up to the committee to recommend if it wants, or to the board to change, because anything that's done here is advisory only in nature, and it ultimately gets teed up for the board. And what's happened in some of the other committees is that certain members of the committees have asked for changes to be considered by the board, and then we make those changes in the interim between here and there, right, getting to the board, because it's ultimately the board that makes the determination as to whether or not anything needs to be tweaked further. But I have visited on each of these items, have reviewed them. They are updating to be consistent in recognizing that this is a 3-member committee. It's advisory only right now. The board has the right to change that in some point in the future. That that she is functionally reporting, administratively reporting to me, and I'm assisting her on those administrative matters. The general responsibilities, I'm not sure, Mr. Nahara, the relationship between the two documents is that the internal audit charter does sort of better define what's happening and what's expected from the internal audit function, with the broader scope described in the front charter, the audit committee charter. And if I understood your comment, perhaps you were you wanting to be able to have the flexibility to speak with the lead, whoever is identified as the audit team?
That is correct.
So it's sort of addressing the internal audit department? Is that, I don't think there's anything that necessarily.
I mean, it's in nature of making sure that we have the responsible party or the responsible person in charge to be able to reach out for whatever type of situation may arise, that we are able to reach somebody and not being able to.
Well, is that a change to, I mean, is that from, and Ms. Pinales, is I don't think that's necessarily a problem, but is that a change to number 1, to the Director of Internal Audit and his or her lead auditors and the Board of Directors? Is that what we're talking about?
What number, sir?
Under number 1, general responsibilities of the Audit Committee Charter? Mr. Nahara, and that's to the point of ensuring that open communication to the audit team?
Correct.
I mean, if I can read it, it says the audit committee provides open avenues of communication between the DIA and the board of directors, ensures that the DIA operates independently of management and remains free from organization impairments.
Paul, I think it's pretty clear that the DIA is the Director of Internal Auditing, and in her absence, there's somebody in her department that can be that we can reach out to.
Yes.
I don't think we need to, unless y'all want to try to interpret this.
No, I think
more.
we can, if I may, we can take a look at that, Paul. We can discuss it and come up with something so we can all be on the same page and be fine with it, right?
So, Mr. Board members or anything, I think I understand the question where it says the Director of Internal Audit. It's understood that she's the lead, I mean, she's the manager of the department. And so generalizing the questions to the department reports to the board in the event of an absence or anything that the board member feels comfortable instead of waiting for Ms. Pinales to come back. And I think a generalized term is whoever's in charge of the department. It doesn't have to be a specific title or person. Is that what I'm understanding?
That is
Okay.
correct.
So in other words,
Generalized.
Ms. Pinales, you're the ones who are in charge of the internal audit department, and so making the generalization to the internal audit department versus the director at each time, so that way there's no confusion. So whenever vacation or other leave of absences, or even questions on internal audits that are performed by the leads, then you know, you're obviously present and things of that nature.
That is correct.
We can
Thank
work
you.
on, we can work on some language. We plan on presenting item 1 and 2 to the full board during the September meeting. So I will work with Mr. Gonzalez so we can make sure we include some type of language in there and then present it to the full board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Melly, we'll move on to the next item.
Yes, sir. Agenda item number 3, presentation, discussion, and possible recommendation to review and update the fiscal year 2024-2025 annual audit plan. So this is based off of a 3-year risk assessment. This is the 3rd and final year. So we do have a risk assessment that was conducted 3 years ago. On that document, we have our universe of all the possible audits that we can do throughout BPUB. It's almost, I believe, almost 100. And this is our 3rd and final year, so this is what we're recommending to work on. Do you have any questions?
Mr. Vidal, any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
So this is the last year of the 3-year
Yes, sir.
plan? Okay. And all of these audits will be done, I guess, once in this time period?
These audits will be, we will kick them off October 1st.
From October to October?
Yeah, October to September is our fiscal year. October 1st to September the 30th.
Okay. And how often do y'all update the risk assessment?
Every 3 years, sir.
Every
So
3 years.
starting in probably June, early June, we'll start with our new audit universe, identify any new departments, any new functions, anything, any of the restructuring. There's a lot of restructuring going on. So we need to ensure that everything is captured in there. And then from the risk assessment, we have 5 different categories that's based off on an appointing system, like a point system, with the help of executive and directors. They're involved in that process. They get to grade or rank based on the different 5 questions that we have. And then we tally them up, and then based on where they fall, either the high, moderate, or low, depending on the points. 0 through 50 is low, 50 through 75 is considered moderate, and then your high are 76 to 100. And if you'd like, I would like to propose that we have another audit committee maybe in September, so we can go over all that process, or if we'd like, I can meet one-to-one, and we can go over that process.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to go through that process.
Okay.
So on some of the high items, so for example, are they audited like once a year? Is it once every, I mean, how often are the high priority items audited versus something that's a moderate or a low priority?
At the end of the day, all departments and all functions are looked at, regardless if it's in year 1, year 2, year 3. It's always dependent upon the audit committee, right? For example, we have the yearly. Based on when we did the risk assessment, the audit committee determined that all of these items were yearly, and you need to look at them yearly. So we've been doing these yearly. But then as the audit changes, as the audit committee changes, they'll say, you know what? No, you've already looked at that for the past 3-5 years. You can put it on the rotating 3 years. So it just depends, sir. There's always moving factors.
Sure, okay. And it's, I don't have the benefit of obviously attending previous audit committee meetings or anything. But so when I see this list here, like, for example, it may be like in here and within the department, but it's not like by function, it's really by department, right?
So there's two things. Can I share the risk assessment, Paul? Just to glance at it and go over it, or?
And let me just say that
Okay.
it's, be like, so for example, when I see an audit plan, and this plan may be the best fit for the utility, you know, it's just that it's the first time that I'm kind of going through this process, right? So if it's the best fit for the utility, then it, you know, obviously it should stay as it is. But what I'm, you know, I'm used to seeing in audits with organizations this size, like, you know, as time has evolved, there's a lot more of technical cybersecurity, application authorizations. That becomes a big part of it. So at the very beginning, I remember 10 years ago, that used to be 5% of what was audited internally. And then all of a sudden, that 5 became 10, 20, 30, 40, because that, as a tool or a function, has presented more risk, right, to the entity. And
So it's hard for me, when I look at this calendar, it may be buried within, let's say, you're gonna audit the financial department, then within your own scope, you may go in there and look at, authorizations for different applications. But I can't tell from the calendar, I guess.
Yes, I think that would require a little bit one-to-one, where there's a lot of playing factors coming into this, determining what we're gonna audit for the next year. We have a risk assessment, like I mentioned, there's over 100 areas that we can audit within BPUB. There's about 70 departments, but then you have grants. Grants is not a department. Grants is a function of a department. We have accounts receivables, accounts payable, the corporate credit card, P cards. There's all these areas there that are functions of a department.
Okay. So maybe that we can discuss that on a one-to-one or later, but, I'm just, and maybe I just have to change the way that I'm looking at this, but I'm used to seeing audit calendars that have specific functions that are being audited versus departments that are being audited, right? Because within the department, they could do some low priority items, they can do some very high priority items. I'm more concerned about the function versus the department. And then I like to see it, okay, when do you plan to start it? When should you finish it? So that we can kind of keep track, only in the sense that, hey, this is a big function. We're gonna have to go a little bit more in depth. That's gonna require more time. So we're gonna have to modify the calendar, or I'm gonna need more resources. In order to do this, maybe that's something like from a cybersecurity that you contract outside with a firm to do, to help with, in that assistance. You know what I mean? But that calendar by function as a board member allows me to see kind of like the global of where we're at with this. And again, are we allocating the right resources, and are we meeting the required timeframes, right? And then it also allows me to see, are these in our risk assessment? Are we doing those audits frequently? If I saw the audit reports look really good. I mean, and compliment you and your team on the audit reports. I've seen a lot of audit reports, right? I can tell that it's very good work, but it's more from the board perspective, from my perspective, is kind of at our level and our responsibility is managing, and holding the department accountable to the calendar, which helps us to fulfill our responsibilities to make sure that, hey, we are prioritizing these items, and the frequency matches, right? Not really interested in low priority items, right? The high priority items are the ones that we need to make sure that, hey, well, maybe something does deserve to be audited semi-annually as opposed to annually, or maybe it's quarterly. Some of these other items, you really don't have to look at them until once every 3 years because they're like a low priority item. I just don't have a good feel for that. And part of that, I would say, most of that is on me as a new board member. So I look forward to that, sitting down one-to-one.
Okay.
But I'd also like, to get kind of thoughts about, some of the things that I've kind of presented right now.
Okay, yeah. So if you look at this proposed annual audit plan, we only have 3 items that are considered high for this coming fiscal year. But if we look at the past 2 audit plans, we've covered all of the high. So these are the 3 remaining that will be focused on this year.
Right.
But yes, sir, we can set up a meeting and we can discuss all the details. To answer your question, this is presented to the audit committee, then it's taken to the full board.
Sure.
Once that's approved, what we work on the back end on our side, we do what is called a quarterly calendar. So we set up the 4 quarters, and then we look at this, okay, what are we looking at? So from here, we need to determine what we're gonna do on quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. Keeping in mind that we also have all the follow-ups, because we perform a follow-up after 6 months when we finalize a report. So we gotta incorporate in there, make sure that we have like you mentioned, the resources, the hours. So all of that happens behind the scenes, but we're welcome to share that with you.
Yeah. No, I think that's important.
Okay.
Very, very, as far as that calendar is, and the functions, and identifying those is very important. But thank
Okay.
you.
Melanie, just a quick question. When you were talking about planning this calendar, you mentioned that you work with the executive team or with members of the executive team?
When we do the risk assessment, yes, sir.
Explain, give me an example of that.
Okay, let me share the risk assessment so we can.
But you're working with top-level people
Yes,
to the
sir.
utility
Yes, sir.
to plan the calendar.
No, to plan the risk assessment of what audit,
That's, okay.
for the rating factors. Yes, sir, let me see.
So the, if I may, the risk assessment wasn't reviewed by myself ahead of the meeting. So I would, that may well be something that's internal
Yeah.
and sensitive information that shouldn't be,
Yeah, Melly, I don't want to
discuss.
pursue it any further because I
Okay.
have an idea
Want to just
of-
close it out then?
of what I was looking for, and then we can pursue this, we can discuss this at
Okay, sir, we can do that then.
one-to-one.
Okay,
All right.
Yeah, I do think, though, that it's very important that the risk assessment done in a collaborative effort, right, obviously.
Yeah,
I mean, the people that do those the responsibilities and the other departments that they work with, they are the best source of information to say, hey, this is a high risk, we've got some potential here. You know, we go through that ourselves, but I also think the risk assessment, you know, once every 3 years is maybe a little bit too long. I don't know if there's any opportunity to do it more frequently as things change, right? And 3 years just seems to be a little bit longer.
okay. We can work on that.
If I may, I believe the internal audit charter is the document that has that sort of operative effect. It defines, as Ms. Pinales described, the universe, and that universe is placed on a 3-year cycle. And if there should be a difference in the way to approach low, medium, high, for example, then that would be a helpful place to, say, put a lesser priority of commitment of resources to low, for example, or to require a mid-period adjustment to the risk factors. Those types of tweaks could be made, and Ms. Pinales, I'm stepping a
No,
little
no,
bit into the
that's correct, that's correct.
the document. But that's where those changes might be made, and if you'd like, I'm sure we can work on tweaks to effectuate that before it gets to the board.
okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and move on.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 4, presentation and discussion of audit reports with no findings. So the last time I presented to the board was in February. That's why we have a lot of reports. But all of these departments, we went in there, we looked at many different objectives, and they had no findings. So the key internal controls are satisfactory. So we're going to commend those departments for a good job.
All right, so on number 4, you're reporting no findings on those different divisions?
That's correct, sir.
Building, the CIS, environmental services, and so forth.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any comments from the committee members? Any questions?
No.
No questions.
All right, we'll move on to number 5, presentation discussion of audit reports with findings.
Okay, so these are the reports that or the audits that we also conducted during the past 2 quarters, and these did have findings, so I can address any of these. I do want to mention that we do a follow-up within 6 months from the last issued report, so we can go into details, or we can wait till I do the follow-up.
Any comments or questions from the committee members on this item?
No, not for me.
Al, do you have anything? I have a quick comment, Melly.
Yes, sir.
This is really for administration. When I read through this, I'm hoping that this type of report, this type of oversights, this type of, I'm hoping we don't see this very often. This it shouldn't be here. Some of these things are really oversights or administrative work. It should have been cleared up by administration. I'm concerned, well, I'm just hoping that there can be a more complete job by the different administrative departments, so this doesn't come up on an audit. I'm not going to get into it. It's here in writing. Anything else? Anything?
Only comment is, do you you ever have a section about like root causes, where you address root causes?
No, we don't.
Okay. I think that's something that you may want to look at,
The root
right?
cause?
Because it's
Okay.
something to find you do the finding and there's a response, but I think the root cause, you may want to look at some of the more recent audit reports, kind of address the root causes, and then what they'll do is they'll get all the root causes for all the items, and then they'll do actually analysis, okay, are we seeing a common root cause that accounts for, a significant part of these findings. And so that root cause is important so that, from an institutional perspective, that if there's something that needs to be added, addressed, or modified, that will help the utility, then that's fine, right?
Okay.
I mean, we want to, obviously you don't want to treat the symptom, you want to treat, something beyond that, right? And so I would just, maybe that's something that y'all in your department would want to look at.
Okay, so we will do.
But there's a root cause within the findings, but there's also a root cause globally as a separate report to say, hey, this is something that we're seeing that's reoccurring. It's a root cause that's fairly common within the organization. And then we need to have that discussion of how, that's going to help us reduce the number of findings, right?
Okay, sir, will do.
I think that was an excellent point. Okay, anything, Mr. Nahara?
No, not at the
We'll move on to number 6, Melly, presentation, discussion of follow-up audits. All recommendations are being implemented.
Yes, sir. So on these 4 audits, we did a follow-up after the 6 months when the report was issued out, and everything has been implemented. So the only note we do have there on the 2 that have an asterisk, we did contact management last week because when we issued out the final report, they had not been implemented, but as of last week, they've been implemented.
Okay. So I'm sure you're monitoring them as they're being completed. All the actions, the recommended actions are being implemented, and then I'm sure your department is checking off the ones that are complete.
Once we do a follow-up, sir, we do not do a follow-up of a follow-up, but based off of feedback, we have been doing a follow-up of a follow-up. And we do document who we spoke to and what action has been taken, but on some of these, it takes a little bit longer than 6 months to resolve. So that's the next agenda item where we still have some open items out there.
All right. Well, okay. Anything on that, Mr. Radial or Mr. Nahara?
No, sir.
All right, number 7, presentation, discussion of follow-up audit, recommendations in progress.
Okay, so as I mentioned, these are the areas that still have outstanding recommendations to be implemented. Legal services, safety, warehouse, the plants. So on legal services, we still have 3 items that are still outstanding. We do need to take into consideration that we did have a vacancy, and then it was temporarily filled by somebody else. So I'm not giving them credit, but there's a justification of why these items haven't been addressed. They did recently hire somebody, so this person is working on these items. So that's for legal services, unless if there's any additional questions I can address.
No, go ahead
No?
and move
Okay,
on, Melly, with
thank
the
you. For these,
different ones.
for the safety and security operations, there are 2 items also that are outstanding, which is the policy, procedures, and work instructions, and also the fire extinguisher process. We did follow up. These items are almost in the process of being wrapped up, so they're still working on them.
Okay, your next one, warehouse and annual inventory count.
Yes, sir. On this one, they're still finalizing the monthly fuel process. This is an effort between different departments, accounting and the actual fleet department. So they are in the process of finalizing this. This one, we always do the warehouse annual inventory count. That's a yearly thing that we do. We will be doing it at the end of September. So we will follow up again to ensure that this process has been finalized.
Okay,
Okay.
your water plant, 1.
Yes, sir. So moving on to water plant 1 and water plant number 2, both of them still have the records retention process in progress. They do not have a records liaison, so they're working on both of these records to be picked up by the appropriate department and be disposed of or do whatever they need to do.
Okay, your next item?
Yes, sir, on the water and wastewater operations and construction, out of the out of the 8, they still have 1 in progress. So it has to do something with a contract, and they're working on that, and that's also in the works.
All right, the last item, Melly, the water and wastewater operation and construction.
Yes, sir, that's the one where they're still working on the contract, that's still pending.
Okay, all right. Any comments or questions on the last item, which was the recommendations in progress?
No, I'm okay with it.
Al, you okay with that? Or you have any?
Fine. There's one kind of related question. How often are the policies updated, policies?
For the
Annually?
departments,
Oh, I'm talking about the policies that you're auditing.
there's at the end of the policy, there it says there that they will be updated if there's an organizational structure or if anything changes. There's 3 sections. I don't remember what the last one is. Nancy here?
But
There's-
are the policies updated just like as practice, like every 12 months or every 18 months? Each
On
department
an
is-
as-needed basis, right? On the
Or is
policy,
it-
it depends. It depends on the department. There's some departments that may not require it to be updated, but there's others that do require.
So there's, in terms of personnel policies, we are in an updating schedule where we will have reviewed the policies, that some of them which have not been reviewed in a long, long time, and should be complete by 2025. Other than that, we will continue to update policies as needed, when changes arise.
Yeah, I think it's another thing it's kind of good to like require at least all the policies be reviewed and updated and then presented to management, right, for approval. Now, some of them don't have to be updated every year. It could be once every 2 years or, however y'all feel it's necessary. It shouldn't necessarily be triggered by, a negative event, right? Or something happened here, let's update our policy. Let's make sure that we address it or something. But I think just as a matter of practice, because part of the updating of the policy is making sure that, people that have to follow that policy and comply with that policy kind of are looking at it and say, hey, nothing's kind of really changed. We don't need internal audit to come here and, tell us, hey, y'all are working outside of the policy, you need to update your policy. I think it's kind of a good practice. I'm not saying to do it, not everything has to be updated every year, right? It's a matter of going back to what's the most important things, what things present the most risk, what are the things, policies that are protect the ratepayer and the utility and the employee. But I think but you should have some type of schedule, I would think, at least once, every policy should be reviewed once every 2 years. I mean, in the old days, we used to do it like once every 5 years, and things just happen so quickly now that, once every 2 years for things that are low priority. The high priority items, regardless if there's something that came up in an audit report or something that came up within the department, the people that work there say, hey, I see something here that, maybe we need to address. But just by virtue of it being a high-risk function, that policy really should be looked at least once a year and approved by the executive management. I mean, I think that's something that, as a board, we don't interfere with personnel. I mean, 100%, that is not our function. But one of our functions is to make sure that there are policies and procedures, right, and that they are effective, right, and that they fulfill what their intended role is. So I would another thing just to kind of consider as far as, how often are policies being updated and how often are they being approved? Even if it's not, an update is not being required, it's like, okay, we did review this, doesn't really require an update, and then it's approved at some level to say it's done, right?
If I may, Mr. Villarreal, most of our policies and procedures do have some language in there that stipulates that those policies and procedures will be reviewed every 3 years and updated. It could be updated sooner if there's any major changes in laws and regulations.
Good.
But at the very least, we should be reviewing those on every 3 years.
And in certain, Mr. Villarreal, in certain areas, including NERC compliance, there is a requirement that we comply with to annually revise and review certain procedures or policies.
That's all I have.
Thank you. That's important. It's all important for us to stay focused on not only internal auditing, but this situation, on this topic of policy. We've been addressing it pretty aggressively, but it never hurts to stay focused on this. All right, that's the last item, Melly, on your for presentation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then we got a couple items that we're going to move into closed session for. Before I ask for a motion to move into closed session, let me read these items. We're going to have the discussion regarding the fiscal year 2022-2023 performance evaluation for the Director of Internal Audit under Section 551.074. And we're also going to go over item number 2, discussion and update on other internal audit services. A, special reviews, Section 551.071, and B, activity on fraud, waste, and abuse hotline submissions, Section 551.071. At this time, I'll ask for a motion to move into closed session.
I motion to move.
All right, Mr. Nahara, motions. Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're going to move into closed session at this time. Thank you. It is 12:40.
Mr. Rendon.
I think I'm staying out until they call us, right? So let them, maybe, yeah. Show, you know, it's like it's so predominant, you know. Give it away, you know. That's why I'm saying that you're like it's a local. I know Johnny. Oh, you know his? How do you know? Oh my God.
He's a regional.
It must have been an El Paso thing too, being all the along the border or what? Is that how do you know Johnny Colorado? Yeah. It would come out on Sunday. It's like a variety show. Wow. El Grupo Más, that's the one that I remember the most. That's what you got it. Yeah, I remember him. That's what funny you mentioned Grupo Más, because that's what I remember him the most. Grupo Más. Los Tigres del Norte, you know. Yeah. Oh. So he's from Corpus, gravitated to South Texas, I guess, and down to El Paso. Oh.
Okay, we have concluded our business in closed session. The only item that I would like to announce is that we are going to ask that administration move the hotline function from internal auditing to either the Human Resources Department or another appropriate department. So that's the only item that we're going to take action on. Do I have a motion?
I motion to approve.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Second by Mr. Vidal. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So this motion passes. Thank you. And discussion and possible recommendation, consideration and a request for future agenda items. I think, Melly, we're gonna be in touch and schedule a meeting with you. We'll be working with Mr. Pequeño.
Yes, sir.
All right, if nothing else, and we'll adjourn this meeting. Motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn?
I second that.
By Mr. Nahida. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all so much for being
Thank you.
patient with us.
Thank you.